Michael Galime. So we're moving forward, it seems, on the funding that would fund this project to pave all the streets in the city of Utica within 15 years. And the question is, how does this process move forward?
Well, it's funny you said funding, because that's what we're moving forward right now. As we know, there's a spending increase. Council had some good suggestions on how to fund that.
Yeah.
And really what we're doing is next month, or this coming Monday, we're going to be getting together with the mayor and his staff, the council, the mayor, his staff, myself, and we're going to start to hash out exactly, which pieces of that council plan the mayor is open to and which pieces we're going to have to discuss and work on. Because the reality is people pass the spending increase, and everyone's going to have to sit down and figure it out now and get those roads paved.
What happens if the turn for the worse occurs? I mean, are you able to back away from this pledge? Is it nothing more than a pledge to spend this money?
Well, it's not a pledge. When you have a referendum, it's basically it's a mandated spending increase.
You got to spend the money.
So you got to spend the money. The only thing, I have been looking into that because I'm like, okay, referendum passed. What can we do? Because there's a lot of talk about referendums. You need another referendum to back out of it. If something really, really happened where we had to do something, it is possible to pass an ordinance, which is basically a law. You could pass a law for change to that.
Because you could be looking, it wasn't that long ago, you had a large tax increase.
Yes.
And what if you were facing, and you couldn't avoid an 8 or 10% tax increase? Now you'd be able to go back and say, okay, we're gonna take a break here this year.
It's extremely difficult, though. That's in part why the council people who pushed this wanted a referendum, so you can't back away from it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you're right. If we do have to rationalize spending, this is spending that cannot be. You can't just prioritize this, which is good. Which is good in a way because people want the roads paved. I want the roads paved. Everyone wants our roads in good shape in Utica. But if worse comes to worse, it's a spending increase. We added $3 million to this budget, so no governments aren't a for-profit entity. All the revenue comes from taxes.
No.
No, I was just going to say we had talked before, and I was corrected on the 15 years. In fact, I believe Mr. Morehouse called in and corrected. I was under the impression this was the 15-year plan.
No.
That was one of the options that was being discussed, but this is for $3 million, $5 million built in until forever.
Right, and that's when I was on prior to the vote on this show, what I wanted to impress upon the voters was this was a spending increase that's permanent in the charter. There isn't really a 15-year plan necessarily.
Got it.
This is a yearly spending mandate. And everything that was discussed prior was a proposal. And Monday we have to sit down and, get the drawing board out.
So what will this get the people of Utica? Will it take 15 years to pave all the streets, or could it take longer or a shorter amount of time?
There's always a plus and minus. It's paving.
Yeah.
Asphalt prices are very, very volatile. The other thing that's going on is when you look at a road, the treatment that needs to be applied, can range from a top coat all the way down to you have to actually dig up and repair the base, like what you see going on down in Oriskany Street in some spots. So there's a plus minus, and the theoretical best case scenario was that over 15 years every road could be paved. That was the pitch from some of the council people, but it's a $5 million a year allocation.
Got it.
That's what we
have. Mark Williamson, the councilman, was against this based on the fact that he felt there was not a proper plan put in place to take care of the infrastructure. So if you're going to pave over a bad sewer line, why are you doing that? You're going to have to dig it up down the road anyway. Is that what's going to be discussed with the council and the mayor?
There's going to be, the council and the mayor, what we're going to be discussing is how the state can come in and help train our people, because that has to be negotiated through the executive of the city. Yeah. And basically, my top concern right now is, the council pitched that we could bond for that $2.5 million, which I'm guessing the mayor may go with, because we do have to find $3 million going into this budget season. But there's also that $500,000 that we still have hanging out there that we have to figure out, and that's got to be a point of discussion as well.
Water Authority would have to be included in this. If you're going to replace water lines,
Water Authority, National Grid, anyone who's under the road is going to want to be consulted with. We did have a meeting with the Water Authority, and they are prepared for an accelerated paving plan. So they're willing to work with us with their capital projects and their plans that are outgoing.
Got it.
But we have yet to meet with National Grid. And the reality is, obviously the weather just changed. Even if all goes well and we align our capital projects, there's always repairs to be made.
Does this mean because you're obviously more than doubling the allotment of money that's spent, do you have to add more staff?
Well, that's one of the issues that was brought up throughout this process. There's a lot of questions that were technically supposed to be answered before this. One of the things that the council really backed putting this on the ballot. Some of the people who were not necessarily, you said Mark Williamson was against it. I think he was very concerned with the fact that a lot of the questions he had that were supposed to be answered before election day when that referendum was on the ballot were supposed to be answered by the people pitching the plan.
Right.
And the reality is we got to get down and discuss that stuff now.
In fairness, I don't think Williamson was against paving
no,
roads.
yeah, but
he's just saying we're not doing our due diligence here, and
right,
you
and
seem like you agree with that a little bit.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I like to see comprehensive plans when you put together spending. I'm never a proponent of just a spending mandate, and then you figure out how to deal with it.
Right.
So I'm 100% for paving. I want
Right.
to see the roads fixed. I was a little uneasy with the fact that we're kind of just going into this, and now we gotta.
Hey, we're gonna pave all the roads and paint the sky blue. Vote for it.
Exactly.
And that's you've got to make sure that this is that at the end of the day, this is going to be something that can.
Well, something else about referendums. See what California does. I mean, they have propositions all the time.
Right.
And what bothers me about referendums is, you see, there's a lot of talk about the Electoral College, how we vote.
Yeah.
Actually, protecting the little guy, and referendums really are majority rule, and that kind of is an interesting situation. It's also a majority of the people who vote. So you got 62,000 some odd people in Utica,
right,
and just over 10,000 are voting. And it's the majority of those 10,000 that made the decision on this referendum.
Obviously, it's the fault of the people who didn't vote. It's their own fault. However, you're right. It's the majority of the people who come out
Well,
to
the
vote.
reality is, though, it's a $5 million mandate now, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to do everything we can to spend the money wisely and also find the funding resources so that it can affect the budget in the smallest way possible.
Keep us up to date because I think people are really interested in this one.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll break.